company and Larry Fink hold such power, why is it that you have not heard of them more? There is power in anonymity. If BlackRock is barely featured in print publications and news channels, it is because they want it to be so. If they wanted, they could feature every day. BlackRock currently owns 18% of Fox, 16% of CBS, and 13% of Comcast, which in turn owns NBC, MSNBC, and Sky. If any of those companies wanted to make a decision, they would have to also consult with BlackRock before doing so. The same is true for Google, a tech giant currently worth $853 billion. Amazon, Facebook, and Twitter are also not exempt. And neither is Disney. Thanks to their incredibly diverse investment portfolio in media alone, BlackRock essentially owns 90% of the world's media. If you don't know about them, it's because they don't want you to. Why? Owning a portion of the world doesn't come without its share of scandal or conflict. In 2020, BlackRock became the first foreign company to be allowed into China's mutual fund industry, which means they can now invest and own parts of Chinese companies, including ones that are blacklisted by the United States. One of the first investments made by BlackRock was in Hikvision, a security and communications firm that essentially makes facial recognition software for use by the Chinese government. But this money isn't just BlackRock's or Larry Fink's. It comes from pension funds and bank accounts of ordinary civilians who have unknowingly given money to BlackRock in the past. If we take into account BlackRock's ownership over Western media, banks, e-commerce stores, social media, food and beverages, and many, many more industries, it becomes evident that the company has a wealth of data on us. They may do with it what they please. TikTok's data harvesting pales in comparison to what BlackRock is capable of, given how they have everything from our bank account numbers to our personal tastes and preferences. As BlackRock's investment in China grows, so will China's influence on the world. And our personal data, which was hanging on a thread to begin with, will quickly end up in the wrong hands. With the trajectory BlackRock has been on,
we have to be ready, and in some cases, it's not going to be nice. The fight's coming to you on a whole different level. They're loaded for bear. Joe Resinello.
Front line with Joe and Joe Pasillo, as always.
They're not going to take this lying down.
On the Crusade Channel, always on air, and always online at crusadechannel.com.
Welcome back, everybody, to the front line with Joe and Joe Pasillo, as always, joined by Joe Resinello. And once more, dear brothers and sisters, oh man, are we going into the breach on the Crusade Channel.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to the front line with Joe and Joe Pasillo and Joe Resinello. And let us go into the breach. Joe, not for nothing, going into the breach tonight, I'm scared. I'm not even joking. I'm not even joking a little bit on the Crusade Channel.
Did that video scare you, Joe?
Well, the thing is, and we got to talk about it. But we're on the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com, the last live radio station standing. Joe, BlackRock scares the crap out of me. I am not scared of most things, Joe. I'm a Roman Catholic man. I'm not afraid of death. But in this life, I'm afraid of what this company is capable of. That clip is not an exaggeration. When you think of that, when you think about the media that they own, okay, when you think of all the industries that they're involved with, Joe, they manage trillions of dollars. You know, when you manage trillions of dollars and you have that much power, okay, you could control armies because you could control nations. They really, when you on this show, sometimes, Joe, I'm a little, I won't say skeptical of what Joe Resinello says, but when you make statements like they'll crush you, and I have to come to grips with the reality that a company like BlackRock, they could crush you. They could grind you into dust. I mean, and I don't know. I mean, us even having this conversation, you know, it makes you think. Now, we're a couple of, you know, peons as far as Larry Fink is concerned. Okay. But Joe, this company is dangerous. And I don't use that word lightly. There is a danger in BlackRock and people like Larry Fink having this much power. Joe
Dude, what a
Arsenault on the
name.
stage now. Yeah, Larry Fink. I mean, make that up. I'm sure he's got a lot of buddies in Hollywood. And it's like if you got the bad guy in a movie that's like the Blofeld type from 007, okay, you think in your mind, all right, Larry Fink. All right, what's that guy like? He's a real Fink, like that. But Joe, I'm handing it over to you because I know we're laughing a little bit, but again, and we're gonna have a lengthy conversation about this on the Crusade channel. Joe, I don't understand why the government's not doing something about it. But I'm going to hand it over.
It's funny when you sent over this article to me, I researched for a clip, and he recently, I think it was Fox News that basically covered some statements that Fink made, saying that he's no longer interested in businesses basically getting involved in the culture war. Ironically, I mean, I take it with a grain of salt.
Of
I mean,
course.
at the end of the day, but that's the irony of like what we're covering. That was recently made. You could probably find that if you search it for the folks who are listening. But listen, what he understands is in a small microcosm, what we have said, it's leverage, Joe. When you own that large of a percentage of a sector, you exercise leverage. That's what businesses do. They exercise leverage. Frankly, that's what Catholics should do. My church has said this. We have said this. And a lot of people in the social media arena have said this. We have to exercise leverage. What they're basically going to do, what did that clip say? They own 90% of the world's media.
Yeah.
That goes left and right. They don't care. They're agnostic. They don't care. That just means that they can exercise leverage. They make a phone call to whoever runs those type of companies and they tell them things and they do it. That's how it works. Frankly, that's what people should be doing. I was listening to Mike this week and he basically covered a story about San Francisco, saying that in San Francisco, people are starting to not want to pay taxes and get vocal about it because they're not getting services. That is how you move the dial in a smaller microcosm to what BlackRock's doing, Joe.
But the other way, too, is somehow, some way. Remember, they mentioned pension funds, Joe. In other words, now, when you get pension funds, that means that, let's say, my mother gets my father's pension from the Teamsters, okay? And her own pension from Essex County in New Jersey, okay? That means those pension funds, which are controlling money that was contributed over the course of decades by working people, they're taking that money and they're handing it over to Larry Fink. They're handing it over to BlackRock. Now, maybe they know that BlackRock can offer the type of return, let's say, because they're all about obviously making a return. But do they know what Larry Fink, let's say, if the regular working class people knew where their pension funds were being invested, if you look at BlackRock, if you look at some of these others, okay, but let's keep it with BlackRock and the type of power that they have. Joe, when you have that kind of money, you almost have as much power as the government.
Yeah, more, Joe. You have more because they give money to the government. They pull the government strings. He has more power than the government. I'm going to be honest with you, in my view.
But then all the people that would champion this or call you and I a couple of conspiracy nuts, okay, here on the Crusade channel, well then all of it is true. You're all in bed with them. You don't want to piss off Larry Fink and you don't want to piss off, let's say, for argument's sake, BlackRock in general and the people that run BlackRock. Because if you're an anchor on Fox, well, guess what? Don't pretend that you're then fair and balanced. Leave it aside MSNBC and the rest of them. Don't say you're fair and balanced because guess what? That puppet master Larry Fink is pulling your strings too. If you're Brett Baer, if you're Martha McCallum, if you're some of these personalities on Fox News, because they just said in the clip 18% of Fox News. Well, that means Fox News is not independent. Larry Fink with his ESG, and we're going to get into that. All right, the acronym ESG. That means he can tell Fox News what to do too.
Well, that's a given. I mean, the only person who could pretty much do what he wants on Fox News is because he has the ratings is Tucker Carlson because he's making them tons and tons of money. But it's like someone who's in the music business. You don't go in like when you sign a record deal, say with Sony, they tell you what to do. No, the song's too long, Joe. It's too long. Cut it down to 3.5 minutes. But no, song's too long.
Right.
And you do it. Unless you're like Bruce Springsteen, unless you're U2, like then you do what you want to do because you're making them money. If you like fart into the microphone, you're still going to make the money and they don't care. But like that is how it works.
Right.
All corporate America is bought and sold in everything. That's just the way it is.
Well, I asked you last week here at the Crusade Channel at the front line with Joe and Joe. I asked you last week, I said, Joe Rossinello, are you saying that there's no hope? And you didn't go that far, okay? Because it struck me as that's what you were saying. But when I hear stories like this, when I see that pension funds and the like are invested, okay, in companies like BlackRock, when I hear about Larry Fink, who basically, according to the article that I pulled up from Breitbart, Larry Fink has been described as the architect of woke capitalism. Okay. Then part of me, I mean, of course, I'm talking, Joe, more on a societal level, not on a religious level. Part of me says, well, then there is no hope. Then really you are going to need an act of God because our government and other governments of the world have allowed this company and this man to amass this much power. Joe, that means your vote doesn't mean crap.
Well,
And nor does mine.
To a degree, that's true. I mean, that's I think that, like, again, getting back to, I feel like I'm Glenn Beck on the board drawing as he always would. I mean, like alluding to what I was saying last week, it's circles of power. Special interests run America. And here's the problem, again, to reiterate it, in my view, all of the circles of power outside of the government itself basically are run by left-leaning progressives for the most part, whether it's banking, whether it's pharma, whether it's insurance, big insurance, Hollywood, social media, the news.
Right.
It's left-leaning progressive, academia. And the problem is, and that's why people say like the Republicans don't do anything. They don't do anything because they know who feeds them. And that is the problem. You see, we have to get special interests out of the government. And I'm going to be honest with you. Power is not given away. It's taken. That's how power works. People who are power drunk or power hungry, they don't give it away. And that's the reason why they hate Trump, because he doesn't play the fiddle. And he's not a perfect man. Again, no. I don't think he's the answer. He's not the answer. But he doesn't play the line that you're supposed to play.
Right.
And that's why the Republicans hate him and the Democrats hate him.
Well,
and that's where, Joe, I'll tell you, that's where the way the system is right now, I'll be truthful with you. I'm going to use Chaput, Archbishop Chaput's title. I'm a stranger in a strange land. This country does not represent me. I'm a Catholic. You know, what's her face? That Margie, whatever the hell her name is in Georgia. She calls herself
MTG, Marjorie.
There you go. I'm a Catholic nationalist. I'm a Catholic, and I believe in this country as it was founded, as it was written in the Constitution. But sadly, that's not the way it's legislated anymore.
But Joe Rossinello, in our history, when the government has seen that corporations, okay, they did it to Alcoa, they did it when they broke up the telephone company, made it into the baby bells. We've seen the government take action against companies, in particular industries that gain too much power. Here's the danger, Joe Rossinello. BlackRock's got its fingers in everything because they own significant stakes in companies that go beyond across all these industries. You're not talking about Alcoa, let's say, that has that cornered the aluminum market in America. You're talking about a company that literally, I know it sounds a little James Bondish. They have, Joe, they're the octopus. They have their tentacles everywhere. They have stakes in all of these companies in a variety of industries. Joe, if the government ever needed an excuse to bring antitrust legislation and action against a company, BlackRock is the poster child for antitrust.
I would agree with you. I mean, it's basically AIG before, the mortgage crisis.
But even Joe, even beyond that,
maybe worse.
Worse. Now, here, let's give an example. Larry Fink, chairman and CEO of BlackRock Investment Management Company, has been referred to, as I said, architect of woke capitals. Now, here's the thing. Also, Joe, they collude. So let's remember the collusion, not just with government officials. They collude with others in the industry. So together with other financiers, Fink has sought to weaponize pension funds through ESG to make radical changes to our economy that would never be approved. Now, here's the key, Joe. Would never be approved by a legislature or at the ballot box. Quote, this is Fink, Joe, and I want your comments. I want your comments at the front line with Joe and Joe on the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com. Here's Fink, quote, society is increasingly looking to companies, both public and private, to address pressing social and economic issues, he wrote in a 2019 letter. These issues range from, Joe, get this, Joe, protecting the environment to retirement to gender and racial inequality, among others. What the F does he have to concern himself with the problems in society that we don't take care of on a cultural level and, when need be, through our legislatures? But do you see that why I mentioned Blofeld from 007, okay? But do you see that type of impulse? They are going to supplant the ballot box and the state legislatures and using his power to influence society on these issues. Joe, I hate, again, using the word dangerous. Dude, Larry Fink is dangerous.
They've already usurped the ballot box. I mean, Americans aren't for a lot of this gender ideology. Democrats aren't for it. I'm telling you right now, most Democrats, if you talk to them, most Democrats are not for that. Like having boys play in female sports. We've seen this in California. They put it to the vote whether same-sex marriage should be legal, and they lost in California. I don't think that would happen now if the same vote took place, but it did happen. Joe, they're not interested in our voice. That's where I'm going to be honest with you. We now are at a stage, and people, this is not conspiracy. And this is one thing, my wife and I were talking about it, that Trump's administration brought to light. It brought to light the uniparty. It brought to light the special interests, control everything, and basically are not interested in you outside of your vote. You have a say to a degree, but then you pass the baton on. Look at the what's it called? The favorability of Congress. It's always below 40%, no matter whether a Democrat or a Republican runs it. Right. We have to take our country back from the upper classes. The upper classes run everything. And I'll be honest with you. The Republicans nauseate me as much as the Democrats. I don't identify with them at all. Not at all, dude. And that's like why I say I'm a Catholic nationalist. I believe in America as it was founded and written in the Constitution, and I see the world through a Catholic lens. And frankly, I'm a stranger in a strange land. I don't identify with any of it, Joe. None of it.
We can't possibly identify with this because we actually on this show at the front line with Joe and Joe, we were applauding this, what we hope is this new direction of the Supreme Court that we haven't seen in our lifetimes, really. And going back to before you and I were born, going back to the 1950s, Joe, where the Supreme Court took so much power away from the states, away from people by issuing rulings on not just abortion, but on a number of things. And basically, no. We'll make the decision here. We'll read it into the Constitution through substantive due process. We'll come up with some fancy language to make you believe that we're not doing anything shady, and we'll decide how the American people are supposed to react to abortion, contraception, blah, 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 and the whole 9 yards. Okay. So you and I were kind of applauding, again, cautiously here at the front line, cautiously, this Supreme Court that seems to say, no, these are things that belong to the states. They belong to the people. Joe, you mentioned the Constitution. That's what the Constitution says. Okay. But when I read stories like this, Joe, then I say, well, regardless of the direction of the Supreme Court, it seems like we have less and less power. So something I was excited about just a few weeks ago, I say, what's the use if Larry Fink is the most powerful man in the United States? And you know what, Joe? He is one of the most powerful men in the United States. In fact, you could talk about China if you want. He's quickly becoming one of the most powerful people in the world. And I don't want Larry Fink to have that much power. If you're a good money manager and you could grow the pension fund so that the people get their pensions, like my mom gets my father passed away, my mom gets his pension, my mom gets her pension. Good. You're a good money manager, you're a good fund manager. You don't tell companies what to do, Larry Fink. Who gave you that authority? And you want to know the answer to that, Joe? The oligarchs have, but their comrades in the Republican Party don't do a damn thing. And that's why I'm glad you mentioned. They nauseate me, because Republicans should be at the forefront of this. They should be at the forefront, and hopefully they will do something, hopefully, to bring some light on this when they retake the Congress.
Joe, I'll be honest with you. The only way either the Republicans, will use them as an example, you have to go in there with the mentality like this: I don't care if you vote for me again. You see, people don't go into this with that mentality. If you have that mentality, you're a dangerous man or woman. You see, but that's not what they do. They want to stay there forever. And that's why they do nothing, because, again, all the circles of power, this is just one of them, leans left. They're progressive folks that lean to the left. And they know that you're in a war. Who's the gentleman? It's Scott, Senator Scott in Florida.
Rick Scott.
He has a good mentality. It's basically like, listen, you voted for me. I have some skills. And you know something? I'm going to put it out there. If you don't like what I say, I'll go get another job. That's not how these guys and women operate.
Well,
and that's why. And who does that to a degree? Bernie Sanders. I don't vote for him. He's not my guy, but he's a free thinking person. Who's another one? She's not my person, clearly. AOC. She basically throws it out there. This is my deal. You have to have, but you see, that's the problem. Like, particularly if you're on the right, these people will just torpedo you. They'll torpedo you. Look what they're doing to Herschel Walker. Look, the warlock, if you ask me, has no business being in the Senate. None whatsoever. The machine is pouring tons and tons and tons and tons of money. Herschel Walker's going to lose, Joe. He's going to lose to the warlock. And frankly, this is how it works.
And the things that they and the way they attack Herschel Walker, we covered it a couple of weeks ago at the front line with Joe and Joe on the Crusade channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com. That Elie Mystal, I think, on MSNBC. He's a heavy black guy, and he called Herschel Walker an Uncle Tom, and he's allowed to get away with that. You know, he's like, and people allow him to get away. He should lose his job, to be honest with you.
Absolutely,
no, he should lose his job. Talk about a good man like Herschel Walker. Okay. In other words, he basically called him stupid. He called him stupid. He called him an Uncle Tom. You know, and this is what we put up with. Let's pivot just for real quick so we could talk about even more danger from BlackRock. Again, this is from Breitbart. BlackRock's extraordinarily close relationship with the Chinese Communist Party.
China.
So oligarchs. What's that?
China.
Why do you look at me when you say China? Remember when the Asian reporter looked at Trump? Why do you look at me when you say China? It's like, I want to say, listen, lady, you did not study acting with Uta Hagen or Stella Adler, because if you had, you wouldn't be such a bad actress. Okay,
that's a person's name, Uta Hagen.
Uta Hagen. I studied with her for a very brief time.
No, I did not know that. It sounds a lot like ice cream.
No, Uta was an old school group theater, the method acting school. Lee Strasberg, Stella Adler, Herbert Berghoff, Sanford Meisner. No, Uta was a great actress. She's been in a number of movies. She died quite some time ago. Uta was a great actress. But yeah, that Asian reporter did not study with Uta. But there's so BlackRock, they have this relationship with the Chinese Communist Party, Joe Rossinello. And they don't care. And this goes to a lot of people outside of BlackRock that do business, American businesses that do business in China, like the NBA and others. Okay. They don't care about China's human rights record. They don't care about they're always talking about the environmental record. China's environmental record sucks. China and India are the biggest polluters in the world. They don't seem to care about that. Fink, let's get back to Mr. Fink, okay? Larry Fink at BlackRock. He said, I continue to believe firmly China will be one of the biggest opportunities for BlackRock over the long term, both for asset managers and investors. Right, Larry, because they use slave labor. In other words, which I'm sure is music to your ears. Or they pay slave wages, okay? Or they have a social credit system, so they make sure they keep that population in line, Joe Resinello. So if you speak out against the Chinese Communist Party, okay, all of a sudden you find yourself not being able to buy bread for the one kid that China allows you to have before you have to go and kill the rest of them in abortions. All right, I mean, here's another thing, Joe, I'm going to hand over to you. Why did the so-called rock-ribbed Sean Hannity Republicans and conservatives, okay, why are they not railing against all our American corporations that are doing business with China? Trump had it right. If you do business with China, it's going to cost you. And I think that's the proper attitude to have, Joe, because of the fact they are abusive. The Chinese Communist Party is dangerous, totalitarian, and abusive. What say you, Joe?
Well, they know that if they speak out against them, it's going to cost them. And that's why they don't, because they like their country club lifestyle. Joe, these people are bought and sold. I mean, listen, when you work for that type of, whether it's Fox, MSNBC, you can't be a free thinker. You'll be a free thinker to a point. The executive producer calls you on the phone and it's just like, listen, cut it out. Cut it out. That's not you want to keep your job. You like your $5 million a year. That's how it works. I mean, to be truthful with you, that's the mistake a lot of people make. They go to their source, their golden source is friggin' rotten. And frankly, you got to read between the lines. You got to look at news across the board. You got to kind of do a little digging to get to the truth. And most people don't do that.
Right.
They're not concerned. And frankly, they're getting bulldozed.
Well, not for nothing, but when you're not getting concerned when inflation, or you're getting concerned when inflation is 8%, and inflation all of a sudden is the big thing. You want to tell the American people sometime, you know what? It doesn't just come down to money. I know you say that all the time, Joe.
But we're not principled as a people, because to be honest with you, Joe, you're right. I agree with you. You're right. 100%, but that's not the way most people tick.
I think we have a new listener, Eddie Schwab. Eddie, how you doing, brother? He makes a good point. Corporate Marxists and fascists need to be rooted out from Wall Street. And Eddie, I'm glad you mentioned that, because Joe, let me tell you something. Another thing too with the right. Stop saying Marxism. You have to know your terms. Larry Fink is not interested in public ownership of the means of production. What Larry Fink is a fascist. But what do we mean by that? Because Larry Fink represents big elite corporate interests across a variety of industries, okay? And he's controlling pension funds. He's in bed with the government. And I wish we could educate people. Stop using fascist the way the left uses it. Eddie's using it correctly, okay? Corporate fascists, Joe, they're in league with the government. They're in league with big labor. They make decisions for everybody else. That's fascist economics. I wish people would understand that. So on the one hand, you're dealing with the wokeness, which is where the Marxism comes in. But Joe, when it comes to the exercise of the power involved here, it's fascistic. It is an alignment of government, business, and labor. So people need to get their terms correct, okay? And that's what we have with Larry Fink. And we're not supposed to have that in America, Joe.
You're 100% correct. Will they do anything about it? Absolutely not.
You know why, Joe? You need a class, not just one. You need a class of members of the House, okay, and senators who you are voting for specifically to go to Washington to take power away from Washington. You know how hard that is to find? Seriously? They have to go there to say, they have to run on an agenda, Joe. They have to run on a platform that says, if you vote for me, I'm going to Washington to overturn everything Washington does.
But didn't Trump do that? I mean,
he tried.
But I mean, that's my point. Like, you're poking the bear, and they're not going to have it. Right. Power is not given away. They're not just going to give you the power. It has to be taken. Now, how that happens, I don't know. I mean, it
Joe,
could happen. It
I want
does
to give you
happen in governments. You think about it, power, it does shift, but it's not going to be so easy, Joe.
but
And
Joe, that's
frankly, I
why
don't know
what
if
you
the ballot
say,
box is going to cut it.
Joe, that's why what you say all the time here at the front line on the Crusade channel, always on air and always online. Joe Pasillo and Joe Resinello at crusadechannel.com. Joe, that's why what you say all the time about the Constitution, if in fact our government operated according to the principles and procedures established in the Constitution, we wouldn't be having this problem. The federal government FDR gave the federal government all sorts of power under the Interstate Commerce Clause. Okay. Well, doesn't BlackRock fall under the Interstate Commerce Clause? Can't the government swoop in and do something about it? Now, my point is, let me not go there for a second because we want to pivot for a second, but I want to throw some out there to you. This is how stupid Republicans are, Joe. I have no choice. I'm not saying he's a bad guy, and I'm not saying he's stupid. I have no choice but to vote for Blake Masters for Senate. Everybody out there knows I live in Arizona. Okay. Blake Masters is running against Mark Kelly, another disgraziad Catholic, okay, who supports abortion on demand up to the moment of birth, okay? I'm listening to ads, Joe, since Blake Masters won his primary, okay? And all Mark Kelly is hammering him on is abortion, 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 abortion. Blake Masters is an extremist. Now, here's my point in bringing it up. We're not going to have an abortion conversation at the front line with Joe and Joe. Blake Masters got to get up there and say, Mark, I don't know if anybody broke the news to you. Roe versus Wade got overturned. You're running for United States Senate. I'm running for United States Senate. The federal government doesn't have a say in it anymore. States do. But you see how feckless our Republicans are? Just to make a simple statement like that to a Mark Kelly, say, Mark, I don't know. If I'm a senator, I really don't have anything to say about abortion. The Supreme Court said it's just a matter for the states. And I have to hear this all the time. When are the Republicans going to come out swinging? When are the Republicans going to start calling them extremists? Joe Resinello, they think babies could be killed the day before they're born. That's not extreme.
No, I know. But again, they know where their bread is buttered, Joe. That's why they don't do anything. I mean, we're in a bad way. I mean, like the country is in a bad way. And if anything, again, that Trump's administration did, it showed it. They're trying to lynch Donald Trump. I mean, let's be honest with you. They've been trying for 5 years, 6 years. Like beginning with this warrant, I mean, which is a joke. I mean, an absolute joke. So, I mean, and no one cares because he's poking the bear, and you don't poke the bear. You see, the bear has to go down. Like he like ran on that. And even Michael Moore, who called it that Donald Trump was going to win. He did. You could find the article. He said it. He described it as this. It's like the American people throwing a grenade into the White House. Well, you know something? And I say this like use it as an analogy. I don't mean it literally, so I don't want to get arrested.
Sure.
Power has to get turned upside down. Like this country is no longer a country of the people, by the people, and for the people. And if you think that, you're naive.
You are naive.
You're just being naive.
See, the thing is this: if you want to take, you know what my message is to people. I don't have any hope for libertarians. I am not a libertarian. Okay. No, people think, well, why can't we be for abortion and for business? Okay, well then go vote for Ron Paul, or I forgot his name, the guy running for governor of New York. There is a libertarian party if you want it. The problem with the American people, many of them, not all of them, many people, I'll give you a perfect example. I think that, you know, that guy that does the Barstool Pizza?
Yeah.
Okay. I think we talked about him a few weeks ago. Okay. I think he voted for Trump. I think he supported Trump. I believe so. Okay.
I think you're right, actually.
Okay. Now, all of a sudden, he basically came out after the Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade.
Yeah, I saw that clip.
Okay. And he's complaining about it. And he said flat out, it's because he wants to bang chicks. And if he gets them pregnant, he wants to be able to bring them for an abortion. Okay. He's the problem, Joe. That guy is the problem.
Joe,
with
there's
America.
So many people who are like, I'll be honest with you, that this is why it goes beyond politics. Like our people and our culture, these people represent them. I mean, this is the problem.
Right.
This is why, politically speaking, it's never going to get fixed. And this is why, I'll be honest with you, we need a miracle. There's too many people that are not interested in facts nor truth. They're not wed to truth. And when you're not wed to truth, you have a tool to exist. It's called rationalization. And that is how a large swath of America exists. They rationalize their actions and their lifestyle away because their life and their choices are not wed to truth at all. And this is the problem. And they're electing people. They represent the country.
Right.
And
right.
that's what has to get fixed. And frankly, that's where, and I'm going to be honest with you, Our Lady comes in, because it's beyond. I'll be honest. I was reading the comments of one of our shows a couple weeks ago, and someone said, we were talking about Trump. This was a comment. I don't even know who said it, but they're spot on. One man cannot fight against this. Dude,
Right.
It's diabolical, Joe. It's diabolical.
And
it's
let's
like
be
trying
clear.
to hold back the ocean.
And let's be clear, it crosses party lines.
Oh, it's the Uniparty.
Party
No,
lines.
it's the Uniparty.
Let me tell you something. Jeff Flake, when he was a senator,
Oh,
he's as much
my
of
gosh.
your enemy. He's as much as your enemy as Elizabeth Warren.
Dude, Jeff
Okay?
Flake should get an Academy Award for that hotel clip. He should get an Academy Award.
Right. Right.
That was so bogus.
All right. Well, listen, let's Joe, sometimes, being here at the front line with Joe and Joe on the Crusade channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com. Sometimes we get angry, sometimes we get sad, and sometimes you just have to laugh your ass off. Okay. And I don't believe sometimes that people can actually believe the things that they say, or they don't maybe float it first to see if it's going to go over like a lead balloon or if it's actually going to fly. But I'm going to hand this over to you because Kylie Griswold over at the Federalist, she wrote a really good article, right? And go ahead, Joe.
Just we got a clip. Don't we have a clip?
Yeah. We have a clip. So let's go ahead and play the clip, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about it.
Cool.
President Joe Biden announced a sweeping new policy to cancel student debt for millions of Americans. The policy also adjusts how much borrowers will have to pay each month and extends the pause on payments. Americans who made less than $125,000 per year in 2020 or 2021 would qualify for a $10,000 cancellation of debt. For Americans in the same salary bracket who took out Pell Grants, the total forgiveness would go up to $20,000. The forgiveness applies to anyone who took out their loans before July 2022. The Department of Education has some people's information, so their debt could be canceled automatically. Some may also need to submit a simple application showing they meet the income caps. Erasing $10,000 in student loan debt will cost the government about $300 billion. Because the federal government backs many student loans, U.S. taxpayers will likely foot the bill. Biden's new policy was just one of his vows around reforming the higher education system. The announced relief led some progressives to commend the progress so far, but still call for more.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking.
I'm beside myself.
It makes you itch
with this whole thing. But here's the thing: they're trying to make it seem like forgiving, because that's where they're going with this. Okay, forgiving student loan debt is what Jesus would do. Because, and Joe, I'm not joking. I'm not. I'm going to hand it over to you. Kylie Griswold points this out in the Federalist. It's like, this is a good thing. And all you Christians and Catholics out there, remember, Jesus would forgive your debt too. Don't you pray that at Mass? Joe, I have to gird my stomach a little bit. So I'm going to hand it over to you to expand on this a little bit at the Crusade channel.
Well, I mean, I don't even listen, I'm all for if someone says they're sorry to forgive them. But let's just talk about it from a policy perspective. I don't think this is going to help anyone because they just said it in the clip. And frankly, they're right. The taxpayers are going to have to pay for it. Nothing is free.
And nothing's being canceled, Joe. Nothing's being canceled.
Right.
Here.
Exactly. But, but again, Joe, this is the problem with voters. They call us low information voters. People can't connect the dots. This is, by the way, Biden's popularity has jumped a little bit, and this is exactly why they did
what he
this.
wants. Yeah.
This is, and because people can't connect the dots. Ultimately, first of all, this is unconstitutional. Nancy Pelosi, a year ago, Nancy Pelosi said, you have to go through me. Chris Christie, I saw him this Sunday on Channel 7, which is ABC News, and he is highly critical of Donald Trump. He was an attorney general. He said, most probably, if not probably, this is unconstitutional and will not happen. That's what people got to just grasp that. Now,
you got to process that.
This is the case. It's West Virginia versus the EPA. It's a recent Supreme Court case which found that Congress needs to provide clear authorization for unusual executive branch action. The Supreme Court precedent is very clear on the question of whether Biden's student loan giveaway needed clear and unmistakable permission from Congress. This is going nowhere. Yet the press is broadcasting it to people. They're eating it up, and it's worked. I'm not saying they're going to win like the Congress in the midterms, but it has given him a bump because our people cannot connect dots. They simply cannot connect dots.
Well,
or they don't, because again, Joe, just 1 second, they live in the I'm not wed to truth. I rationalize my life away. They don't live in reality, and they frankly fall. I should just be a crook and sell people the Brooklyn Bridge. I'd be rich. It's just sad. It's sad. It's heartbreaking, actually.
It really is, like you said, because people either choose not to connect dots, they stick their head in the sand, they think everything's going to be okay. No, it's not the case. Connect these dots, okay? Now, here's what's going around on social media, Joe, and I just love your comments on this, okay? And it goes a little something like this. Quote, bold of Christians to be mad about student loan forgiveness while professing a faith that is literally based on forgiving debts, close quote. Is that a joke? Like, is that a joke? Here's another one. Quote, I'm not Christian, but with all the teachings about giving, I'm pretty sure Jesus would be cool with President Biden's decision on canceling student loan debt. So that was David Weissman, who's a anti-Trumper on Twitter. You talk about not being able to connect dots and trying to liken this to the forgiveness and mercy of Jesus Christ. To say to somebody, okay, what about justice? Okay, what about what's just? You took out that loan. Now, whether you were lied to by Harvard and Yale and the government, your parents and everything else, okay, who told you had to go to school, okay, you took out that loan. In justice, you have to pay it back. And it's not just to make the blue-collar guy who said, I don't want to go to college. I'll read books. I want to become a plumber. I want to go make a lot of money. I want to go into construction. I want to make a lot of money. Okay, I could read Shakespeare on my own. I don't have to go to college. I'm not taking out $200,000 worth of student loan debt. Why are you making that guy pay? Is there not a matter of justice here, Joe Resinello?
Well, let's break that down just because again, facts are facts. As of 2020, 40% of Americans went to college between 18 and 24. Now, we'll be conservative. Say of that 40%, 5% have money and could pay. They have no loan. So say 35% of America in 2020 went to college and took some amount of loan out. That means 65% of America did not. That means They have to pay for it. And here's the deal. We'll be conservative again. Of the 65%, 30% of the 65% are working poor and poor people because they are not going to college. Some of them don't even have high school degrees. Okay. Does that sound equitable? Does that sound just in the language of Jesus? Of course it is not. Now we'll talk about loan forgiveness and being just. How about this, federal government? Instead of giving people the loan break of 10 grand, which if you owe 100 grand, you're basically not really helping them that much.
And all you're doing is knocking off the interest that's accumulated.
How about you stop requiring interest and just have them pay the principal? Or now that's a Jesus move. Or because that's equitable to the 65% who didn't take loans, who are going to have to pay anyway. Don't listen to Joe Biden. The taxpayers paying for it, people. That's how the world works. Or the colleges who are in bed with the federal government, who know that the federal government is giving away money through loans just because you ask for it to study something stupid that you're never going to make money with, continues to raise their prices. And that's why prices continue to raise, because they know they're going to get the money from the government who's giving money away basically because you ask for it. So how about the colleges say, you know something? Since I've been robbing you for 30 years, we're going to forgive it.
Right.
But that's a Jesus move. But that's not going to happen either. So all this is a carrot to, frankly, I'm going to be charitable, people who are not connecting the dots, and it's never going to happen anyway because it's unconstitutional. It's unconstitutional. And it will be, even if he tries to do it, it'll go to court. He may have some success at the lower courts. It's going nowhere. And our people can't see that. The media is blowing the horn. And frankly, here we go again. It's sad, Joe Pasillo. And to be honest with you, I'll say it again. I'm a stranger in a strange land. I don't recognize what I see anymore.
This is a strange place, Joe Resinello, on the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com. You're with the front line with Joe and Joe Resinello, Joe Pasillo. It is a very strange place when Harvard University, which is gouging these students and their parents up to you-know-what, year in and year out, raising their tuition, and they're getting $1 billion of taxpayer money year in and year out through the Department of Education, and Yale and the University of Maine, University of Washington, all in the name of research and development. Why is the government not getting out of? Now, you want to talk about what we were talking about earlier about power, taking power away. The government needs to get out of this business. They need to get out of putting their hands in everything. They need to dissolve the Department of Education. You don't need it. Every state has a Department of Education. You don't need a federal Department of Education. But you know what they do, Joe? The federal Department of Education is really good at taking our money and giving it to institutions that are dripping, oozing money out of the cracks of their ivy-lined walls. Okay? But we like you said, we don't connect the dots and we let them get away with it. Why, Joe? I'm asking one more time. Why is Harvard getting $1 billion of our money? Why?
Because it produces the very people that enslave the regular man. And that's what the power brokers want.
Right.
I mean, like, dude, it's a sick cycle. That's another circle of power that leans left. It's sad. All of it is simply sad. And again, it's never going to happen. This is another facade. It's a lie. It's a bold-faced lie. If he was serious about this, it would have been in his Inflation Reduction Act, which, by the way, was another lie. And don't take my word for it. Wharton Business School called it a lie. Look it up.
Right.
So people, Joe, they pay attention to what they're told. They pay attention to the mainstream media. They buy it hook, line, and sinker. And frankly, they get bulldozed. They are getting bulldozed. I hear people, you talk about like ridiculous. They're like, gas has gone down. It's 3.67 a gallon. Really? It's gone down? I remember when it was $2 a gallon. You're
Yeah.
happy with 3.67?
And it was $2 under a guy named Trump.
But Joe, again, it's just sad. You talk about another lie. I saw a commercial on TNT. I was watching a movie with my kids for abortion, and they said a woman. She's a Hispanic woman, of course, because they're placating, Hispanic women because they need their votes. People don't connect that dot. And then she says, abortion is between me, my doctor, and God. I sat there. I almost fell off the couch. I was
Right.
like, God, you're going to consult with God, and he's going to say, it's okay. It's okay. You could have the abortion.
Right.
Joe, it's just absurd. But this is where we're at. Our people cannot see. We're blind. And frankly, again, it comes down to this. Sin dulls the intellect. This is a teaching of the Roman Catholic Church. And I'm being kind. I'm not calling people names. It simply does. It dulls the intellect. There's a big difference between wisdom and knowledge. And there are many people who sit in the back pew, who go to church every day, who could run circles around people who went to the Ivy League with regard to living a good life.
Right.
And
Right.
they simply live a better life. But frankly, the world is not interested in that life. They're simply not. And as a result, they're getting steamrolled. And as a result, they vote for fools that enslave them. They enslave them.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, they just continue to march along. Because why? I will not serve.
Right.
I will not bend my knee.
Think of it this way,
to
too.
God.
No, Joe, I agree. I look at it this way. The person who would actually do something, I mean, I'm just saying this is the reality of the situation, Joe. A candidate for federal national office, a senator, a member of the House of Representatives, or even now with this Supreme Court, governors, all right, because now governors and state legislatures have more power because of the Supreme Court. The problem is those who would talk like us, Joe Rossinello, and actually have the stones to do something about all this, who have their heads on straight, generally speaking, are not going to be for abortion, gay marriage, and the whole 9 yards. And that's what prevents a lot of people who would complain about a lot of this stuff from voting for that person. That's why I mentioned Mark Kelly. Mark Kelly should not even be elected dog catcher. But what is he going to do? He's going to focus on the fact that Blake Masters is Catholic and pro-life. He is against abortion, okay? And he's going to hope that Arizonans will vote for him and leave aside all this student loan cancellation, going with Biden 97% of the time, or Pelosi 97% of the time, because the American people refuse to listen to somebody, and many times, not all the time, who say, no, I'm not interested in compromise on abortion. I'm an abortion abolitionist. And they'll say, well, I'm not voting for you. Well, then my view of that person, Joe Rossinello, is then shame on you. And when the time comes, Joe Rossinello, the hammer comes down, I'm going to quote a line from Billy Joel. Go on and cry in your coffee, but don't come bitching to me. Okay?
You know what it is, Joe?
That's my
Again,
view. And Joe,
bad
I got to hand
behavior
it
has
to Joe.
become
Joe, hang on.
normalized.
Joe, hang on. Joe, hang on. We got 2 minutes left. Final thoughts.
Bad behavior has become normalized. Like things that frankly should not take place have just become normalized. And again, we're paying for them because there's consequences. Like people just, oh, that's just the way it is. No, it's not. It doesn't have to be that way, but we accept it. We simply accept it and we move along because we have some amounts of comfort. Until people are uncomfortable, that's when you'll see real change. Until then, it's never going to happen because the people in charge are never going to shake the tree. They're not going to do it because it's like trying to move a mountain. And frankly, I can remember when Trump ran. Again, I don't even like because people just write you off when you say that as if like he's a political messiah. He's not. But you know something? He's trying in many segments of the society to shake the tree, and they're not willing to shake it, meaning the tree. The tree's not moving. So, Joe, I'll be honest with you. The answers, will they come? I think they come through a conversion. Will they come? They'll come through suffering. People, life gets real hard. Maybe then the oligarchs will have to take a back seat. Until then, nothing's changing, people. Don't think it is. It's not.
I think that's a good place to leave off. And let's just make one finer point. I think it's important to leave everybody with here at the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com. You're with the front line with Joe and Joe. This so-called cancellation, by the way, at its core is theft. It is theft. So don't let anybody who's all in favor of loan forgiveness, it's stealing from the people who don't want to pay other people's loans. It's stealing from taxpayers who paid their loans or who didn't go to school and don't have any loans to forgive. You're stealing from them. And guess what? Jesus is not real cool with. He's not cool with theft. Joe, we got to leave it there. I think it was a great conversation. I think it was an important conversation to have at the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo and Joe Resinello, always going into the breach on the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com, the last live radio station standing. Go to the website, crusadechannel.com. Look under the hood, kick the tires. You're going to want to subscribe to the Crusade Channel with a great lineup. King Dude, Mike Church, he leads the lineup down there. He's gracious enough to have Joe and Joe on there. I believe we're airing on Monday nights. So we are forever appreciative of that. Remember, wherever you see Joe Resinello and myself on social media, like, subscribe, and share, and do all that fun stuff and help a couple brothers out. And remember, until the next time, thank you once more, that our conversation is your conversation, and that conversation is going on everywhere. We'll talk to you soon.